to look forward to. Should be good. Well, hi everybody. I must admit it's great, absolutely brilliant to have Magilla, the gorilla, back again. If you remember Magilla, we had a whole load of presentations by yourself on the Dude's channel. He's still very much missed, and I seem to remember that they sort of came to a bit of a halt when we got to the COVID outbreak, and that kind of took over things. So it's great to have you back here. I like your picture, by the way.
Yeah, this is actually a picture of a baby gorilla in I think it's in a German zoo, and his name's Magilla, and I just thought he was a little bit cuter than my old avatar. I'd share my face, but I'm still hiding from the law enforcement officers here in Wisconsin. So,
you're right. And
well, you guys, have you got something cute to say about my picture, Paul?
I was gonna leave that one. I was gonna introduce our new guest, Teresa, who's come all the way from Utrecht in the Netherlands. So hi there, Teresa.
Hi there.
Hi, Teresa.
Nice
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Yep. In case you're wondering, we haven't swapped Teresa for Rule. I have been in touch with Rule. He's been very busy, so at least we're keeping the Dutch connection going, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, it's still big on COVID right there in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
Rule.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
He's fighting a good fight.
And yes, he is. Oh well, yeah. He still tweets. He still tweets quite a bit. I still see quite a stuff of his stuff on tweets. On Twitter, but yes, he's just been really busy with his, as he calls it, his government's response to the COVID situation. Mark, I don't think you need any introduction. I'm going to let you introduce yourself anyway.
Hello. Sunday morning here in Australia. I'm down in Melbourne. Very largely COVID-free country at the moment, so very happy about that. So, yeah.
You don't have a
Good.
picture up? You're not
Good.
live?
And I see that
Right?
we have Stacey with us. Hi, Stacey.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nice to see everyone.
Yeah, you too, Stace.
What's happening in British Columbia at the moment near Vancouver then?
I'm actually on the road. I just pulled over to a rest stop here, and I watched a bit of I listened to a bit of your chat there. And it's spring here. We have the local fishery is happening, so there's a lot of action on the coast here, and I'm just running into town for supplies. But yeah, there's so much. It feels like there's so much energy with the case with the Zellner's interview yesterday, and then watching your live. So thought I'd pop in for a few minutes to say hi.
Well, yeah, it's you don't need any invitation. You can just say, Paul, I'm available such and such if you're doing a live, and I'll just send you a link.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's funny because I'm using data off my phone right now, but when I'm at home, which is, I wonder if I could, probably can't show you, but it's just on an island about 12 minutes over there. And so the Wi-Fi is such a weird connection that over here, I just get a better reception. So sometimes when I'm at home, I like last week, I was trying to get on with Mark and it just failed, so, but I'm always open to talking about the case. I just had a nice hour-long chat with another supporter, I can't get it's so funny to have so much energy for this case. It's never really happened in my life before when I have this sort of obsession with this case.
It was funny. I was thinking about that presentation that we went to see of David Rudolph in Sydney and particularly Melbourne, when he mentions that famous poem, which I'd actually heard in Amsterdam, which I think sort of sums everything up, doesn't it? It's the poem by, you'll beat me to it, Martin Neumüller.
Which the
quote.
is it a poem?
Yeah. First they came for the socialists,
Yeah,
and I did
yeah.
not speak out because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I still did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me.
Yeah.
It seems to have struck a chord with you, I would say.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. And so it's, I was just saying this to Carrie on Carrie Mindel there.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's I'm always supportive of Stephen and Brendan. I just think it's just a travesty what happened. But the real fuel comes from the injustice and the corruption I see. That's the real fuel. And so I think if we allow this to go unchecked, it's just such a slippery slope. And it's to be honest, it looks like, you know, Wisconsin, that area has slid down that slope quite a bit, you know.
No, Kelly.
Yeah, it's absolutely just
That's our fear.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, it certainly looks that way, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're often called the Canada of the United States, but I think they more mean like Saskatchewan than British Columbia.
Yeah. I'm interested in everyone's thoughts about the interview, if people have seen it, on Justice Matters, that one with Kathleen yesterday.
Yeah.
I've only seen a couple of minutes of it.
But yeah, it's on YouTube. It's easy to find. I think lots of people watching actually sent links to me, so we could definitely post a link if anyone's interested.
I'll do that. I'll do that right now because I did watch the first few minutes of it because it was sent to me by a supporter. So I will just post a link to it just in case anybody's not seen it yet. There we go. It's interesting because
I was going to say, Paul, the thing I liked about the interview, which is a characteristic that I like about Kathleen Zellner, she just says exactly what she's doing and thinking.
Kelly, no.
She doesn't try to hold any punches, and so it's very very refreshing to hear her speak. She tells you exactly what's going on, what the strengths, what the weaknesses are, what the problems might be, what we'll do if we win, what we do if we don't. There's no making it pretty just for the sake of an interview. So
it's also nice on a case to hold most of the cards.
Yes, correct.
You know, it's a funny thing because it started off with a 1-2 punch. It was it really shocked me when she mentioned the people have an argument that we're procedurally barred, a strong argument, you know. That kind of hit me as like, oh shit. And but then she finishes up with having confidence in getting an evidentiary hearing. So it's I don't know.
I think it's she, you know, she can't be too top thumping when she comes on.
Well, it's a matter of how crooked the judges are in this state. And her face is not just a cute avatar.
Yeah.
I might say a little more.
Yeah. Teresa, Teresa Magilla. If you're ready with your presentation, then
yep. Well, we'll go right to it. So for this, I was calling part 1. So I'm hoping we'll get into a pattern. I think it might take as much as 4 or 5 parts to get through my reanalysis. So here we are. This actually was a slide that was from my last analysis. For those out there that watched the Loof Science Talks with Eric Hosey, welcome. I haven't assumed you have watched those talks, but when those talks ended, I felt like we had a real good analysis. And then what happened was we talked with with a fella who's an expert on canine training, Jeff Young, who had actually been a canine trainer for the Army, and then had come back stateside and been a canine trainer in the police force, and now runs security services for a large Utah ski resort, which I guess was a job he preferred over those. And he also runs the Utah Search and Rescue. And it really starts with Loof and Officer Fauski, who we're showing here. I was a little taken by probably by Kratz, I guess. I heard there was a 23-page CV for these two, and I also their reports were at least 100 times better than any of the other reports we got. But I thought they were probably better at what they do than Jeff Young taught me. And he got me to understand a lot more of what the pitfalls are in taking a trained dog into a situation that's more complicated than they've trained in. And he warned me that he thought I was being too simplistic with my analysis of the dog tracks the first time. So this time, what I've done is I've taken a lot of what Jeff said. Jeff didn't work with me on this yet. I'm hoping he'll come back and we can talk about it. And I tried to incorporate what Jeff was warning me about. I'm also showing here, what I think is one of the most powerful pieces of the Loof scent tracking evidence. This is what I call the northern leg of Loof Track 6. And I think this is a thing that the defense really failed to get in front of the jury enough. And I think when they were trying to argue that there was a planting episode in the burn pit in the Averys, that this thing is just so powerful visually that if he had drilled this thing into that jury, they would for sure have thought the defense was right about the planting of the bone fragments in the burn pit. Mm-hmm. Okay, so as we get started, I guess my strength, I have a strength in, and I share this with Joras, in seeing things through maps and diagrams. Some people, can read 10,000 page documents, and that's how they process information. But I'm an engineer. I'm not sure what Joras is, but we see those pictures that are worth 1,000 words, and that's really what I think the dog tracks do to us. But now I'm going to lay a lot of the basis under the analysis. So if we start out with, I think I'm on the forward now. Let me make sure I know where I am in my talk.
Yeah,
okay, so this is up on Twitter for everyone. I hope everyone has access to it. I encourage people to try to look at it before this talk. This first section I called the preface. So this is where we try to explain what's different about this and my previous, more naive attempt to understand the dog tracks. One of the things we didn't have that actually wasn't presented in trial, other than the number of pages, was materials from Sarah Fauski's resume of training with Loof, or her CV, as some people call it. These are some highlights. This is an important certificate. North Central Technical College is a college that actually provides police continuing training in northern Wisconsin. And one of the things Sarah had done with Loof was she had just completed 24 hours of field training with Loof at this technical college. Is someone trying to ask a question?
You're fine with me.
Okay. Yeah. Just because I'm getting a little bit of noise. I thought I want you guys to butt in anytime you'd like. So I'm listening for you. So this was actually training that you did earlier in the month, right before Teresa went missing. So this is actually the last training that Loof and Sarah had, and it's very important. We can see that this certificate provides a lot of information. It actually lists all the things that they did in 24 hours. And one of the things it lists here is under the second bullet is that Loof was trained to smell out narcotics, evidence. So if they were looking for a specific type of evidence, Loof was given a sample smell of the evidence and could sniff out evidence. It says cadavers here, but this was actually human remains detection planning. So it was both cadaver parts and cremains that Loof was trained on. And Loof was trained on explosives. So one of the things that this document tells me is that Loof received a lot of training at the very end that was normally handled by much more training if a dog is going to specialize in these things. Right. And I think what happened was Sarah built on Loof's ability to track human scent and actually got Loof to perform these things by using these things as a scent article. But Loof had just recently been trained to track all sorts of things that weren't in Loof's original training. That's I think, important to understanding the tracks when we look at it more. We're also going to learn about a thing called scent discrimination, and this is something that I've learned from some police literature, and I've also learned from my talks with Jeff Young, that it's very important to do a lot of training in scent discrimination. And so Loof had completed very advanced courses in human scent discrimination. This certificate, which was from a year before the incident with Teresa Halbach, shows that Loof came in an area where an individual had left a trail 24 hours ago over varied terrain. So it tested Loof's ability to track over varied terrain, and with some tricks in the track also. A lot of times they do walk forward, come back, right turn things. This was over an area that they went in and contaminated with a lot of other human scent. So Loof, this is a training exercise in human scent discrimination. And Loof was pretty advanced in this. In trailing and tracking, Loof had reached like level 3. Like here is a tracking and trailing level 3 certificate, but this would have been on human scent. So Loof was trained to be more of an expert on human scent, but had just received sort of this survey course of going after everything in sight. And really, so what Jeff said is, he says a dog can be amazing because of their abilities to smell, but one thing you got to understand is that even the best trained dog is still like a 5-year-old with no attention span. And he was talking about his dog Zoe, who, when they get her GoPro cameras on her head and she's, dressed up and dropped from helicopters, you start thinking that this is some sort of almost robot dog. But one thing he said is even Zoe, who is like one of the most amazingly trained dogs, this is a dog he trained after becoming an expert for both the Army and the police. He said that, I remember it sticks in my mind so much that she's basically a 5-year-old with no attention span. So, and he also said that he would never train a bloodhound. He had Zoe is not, she's not a Belgian Malinois, but she's a related breed that has longer fur, I think. Okay, so I did a lot of that. Just give you a little bit more on. So here's Jeff Young on one of his training exercises in Utah, and he was lucky enough to get looks like a military helicopter to bring his team up to the mountains where they were training. That's his super dog Zoe. He actually spells it without the Y. I didn't know that until after I made a whole bunch of slides. So, One of the things I talked about with Jeff in a large extent, and I know this track a lot of people have studied. This is track 3, which was when Loof was started, where Teresa's car was suspected to have been parked. Well, not suspected. I guess everybody agrees it was parked somewhere close to here. And the van was still in place. And what happened was Loof did her scent inventory, was told to find, went to the van, sniffed at the van, and then went to she went to Stephen's F-150 parked in the driveway by her garage, then started sniffing around the edge of the garage, was interested in going in the garage, but they didn't let her go. Then she went around the side of the garage and started going out where Stephen's dog was chained up, Bear. And then Fauski reported that she pulled Loof off the scent of Bear and just pulled her back and just said, "Don't go there." And then Loof all of a sudden wanted to go in Stephen's south door. And then Fauski really didn't want to go in there because she wasn't permitted to go inside the trailer. So she pulled Loof off of the front door. So Loof started tracking north up the trailer and eventually found a track going up to the Cuss Road cul-de-sac. Does everybody remember that?
Yep.
Yeah. So here's the whole track, and then on the other end, we get to the Cuss Road cul-de-sac, and we got to the cul-de-sac, and there was like 700 law enforcement vehicles there, and somebody came and said that the scent dog tracking wasn't important. We were too busy contaminating the crime scene. So what Jeff told me was, he said that the behavior of Fauski on this track, he found incredibly non-understandable. He said, once you pull your dog, if it's a tracking dog, once you pull your dog off the scent track, its behavior is indeterminate after that. So we're not really sure where she first did that. In a report, she first does it when the dog starts going toward Bear out by the burn pit. But the problem is, she might have pulled Loof off of the track at the van, and
Magilla,
I really think that Loof was following Stephen's scent off the van, went to Stephen's truck, went to both doors of Stephen's truck, then went out back to try to feed Stephen's dog, then tried to go in Stephen's front door. Then she pulls Loof off of Stephen's front door, and I guess Loof gets the idea that, we're not following Stephen. First it was, we're not following Teresa. Gets pulled off again. Now we're not following Stephen. And now eventually we get this track back to the Cuss Road cul-de-sac. And what Jeff said is, God only knows what Loof was tracking at that point. You sort of get the...
Magilla, is it possible that Loof can be identifying any number of scents at the one time and could be picking up on any number?
Yeah, so we'll get into it. So if you have a contaminated scent article, what happens is if the dog is trained, you can have a predictable behavior. This is something else Jeff taught me, and I've actually read up on it afterwards. So if I had a dog that was trained to deal with contaminated scent articles, there's a thing we can do, which is we can eliminate scents by having them be available at the beginning of the track. And then what they'll do is they'll look for the scent that's not existing at the beginning of the track. So what they might have done is, by pulling Loof off of Teresa's scent, which might have only existed at the very beginning of the track, Loof may have followed another scent associated with the article, but we can't know. We talked about scent discrimination. One of the key scent discrimination training exercises that there's no evidence Loof did was dealing with contaminated scent articles. And depending on how your dog behaves when first trained, you correct them into the behavior you want. And the behavior you want is to look for the trail that has somebody else associated with the article. If Loof never went through that training, getting pulled off of the primary scent of that scent article, if Loof smells other scent, and Jeff thought for naive dogs who had very little training, they would probably just go after the strongest scent they smell there, which would make sense. It would be Stevens. So he goes, he's given the scent article. He finds the end of that trail is maybe it's at the van. And then Fauski does something to indicate, no, that's not what we want. And then he says, okay, I smell this real strong smell. I'm going to follow this one. And then it looks clearly to me like he's following Steven around his house. You know, he's feeding his dog. He's going in his garage. He's going in his front door. And if we look at the other track like this, it's worse. He starts going around the back of the house. And then she pulls him off, and now he's following some other scent. Because I think she was indicating to him, no, not that, or to her, I keep getting Loof's sex wrong, to Loof that that's not the scent we want. And she's just like pulling Loof off, saying, look for another scent. So we know Loof can give a negative scent indication, but the partnering is what Jeff called it, the partnering between the owner and Loof during this period of time. It's even from what she wrote about herself, he said, indicates that there's bad partnering going on. Does that make sense? Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the only part of the scent evidence that tends to be inculpatory for Stephen also, is it sort of indicates, well, maybe Teresa went into Stephen's house. But he's saying, no, she's pulling Loof off. And once, I think what he said is, once you pull your dog off a track, there's no, I can't remember what the idiom is, but you can't trust the track at all after that.
So Magilla, is the scent sample given to Loof at this point just the sniffing of the van, or is it some other article?
No, so they have, so if we go back, and I apologize, I sort of am assuming a lot of people watch my first set of talks, but, and I do go into some of the other tracks in more detail. So this track starts, and the other ones I'll actually show her report side by side, but she pulls out the sole of the shoe that was taken from her house. Okay. So the scent article is two shoes that were taken from her house on the 7th of November. They were gathered by a CASO officer that was not trained in scent article selection and gathering. It's likely they were selected actually by Scott Blodorn and Ryan Hilligus at the home and given to them. Like he comes in, I need a scent article, and they looked around and found two shoes from. It's one shoe from two different pairs, I think, is what they gave him. A dress shoe or a more dressy shoe and a tennis shoe. So once Fauski gets it, she's trained in handling this thing. She puts it in a sealed bag, and then she prepares the scent article by cutting out the sole near the toe. And Jeff said that was a good thing to do. That should have given a real strong scent of Teresa and limited contamination. So he felt like a contamination there should have been a very minor part of the scent.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay, so if we go on, I don't want to spend too much time here in the preface. And before we get to that photo. So here's some more pictures of Jeff. We're still hoping he can help us with this. I have and here Zoe's actually spelled with a Y, so I don't feel that bad. Okay, so the person who told me it wasn't there might have been wrong too. So here's Zoe with all her gear, and she's she would be a great benefit for us in what I call Operation Dog Nose that hopefully we'll get to a little bit later. Unfortunately, COVID has put a pause on a lot of things. And then here's our old buddy who I wish was with us.
Yep.
And anybody who didn't notice, a lot of the stuff behind him, I think, is currently in the background of our good friend Paul. So
he sent me a few photographs, and I said, I've got a green screen. I want to be in your studio. So he did that for me. He did a couple of photographs.
Just a green screen. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's good.
Yep.
Okay, so that's pretty much all I want to do with the preface here. So we're going to get into the main story for today, which is chapter 1. I don't think I'm not even sure we'll get through chapter 1. So sure. One of the reasons I wanted to focus on chapter 1 is even during my first analysis, I concluded that this had to have been done by law enforcement. And law enforcement isn't associated with the scent article. And this was one of the reasons I knew some of my assumptions the first time were too simplistic. One of the reasons the track had to be done by law enforcement, if we start looking at the track, is on the 7th. The 7th is, I guess, Mondays. The 6th was Sunday and it rained. The 7th was 1 week after Teresa went missing. 2 partial tracks were done, and this is not the best to compare. 4 is a better one to compare. 4 actually comes down here by the deer camp, and Loof did not find this strong trail back toward this berm. So if we look at, there's a berm here where it shows Loof pacing back and forth. Actually, just going over there, Loof got so excited. Loof went in the water twice because thought something was in the water and came back out. So I suspect something was dropped there, which is an important thing because there's a good chance whatever was dropped there is still there. And there's a good chance the person moving across this quarry pit from the deer camp would have been pretty exposed out in the open. So there's a good chance they were moving fast with a bucket without a lid, is what I think. And by the time they got to this berm, there's a place to hide. This walking back and forth, I'm pretty convinced is the person is coming out here to the edge where they can peek at the burn pit. But there's an officer sitting over here by Stephen's burn barrel that's patrolling it. And this is those repeated attempts to peek to see if the officer's gone, and then keeps coming back. But the problem is where he can see the officer might be able to see him. And then he backs off to where he's got good cover and eventually makes his run to dump his bucket of cremains into the burn pit. I think he spilled cremains on the path between the burn pit and that corner of the lot. We know they went in and supposedly looked really thoroughly with a bobcat through the yard to try to ensure they had found everything. But what they were really trying to do is to make sure nothing else was found. So today we're going to talk about this. And I think track 6 is probably one of the biggest failings of the defense, is to not put this picture up in front of the jury for a long time. You can try to argue all you want, but this track was not found the day before. The property's in police custody the old time, and this was drawn by a police officer, not by the defense. It looks like, if the defense wanted to give their theory of somebody dumping cremains in the burn pit, they would draw this picture. But this picture was drawn by a police officer right after her scent dog did work in this area. And it's just dumbfounding that this picture wasn't presented to the jury, because I don't really care what Kratz says about it. It makes him look bad. Okay, so So we'll go a little deeper into this discussion. I guess one of the things people love about me or hate about me is I try to go very deep. I try to get down to first principles, make sure I have everything referenced back to what can be the source of the information. And a lot of people think, maybe I spend too much time on things. So here is a key track that relates to track 6. This was track 4. So we talked about track 3 in the preface, where Loof eventually found a path that walked back to the Cussworld cul-de-sac. But they told her, what you're doing isn't important. We're too busy, having 300 people camp out in this cul-de-sac to later find out that everything that's going on there is unimportant. So what Officer Fauski did was get permission to, it seemed like he was going to the cul-de-sac and you won't let me into that area. And the area where they were excavating is in this third box from the top left corner on top. And they told her, you can go down this path to the deer camp and start Loof down there. So Loof was given a scent inventory here right at the X, which is the start of track 5. And what Loof did was was very interested in circling the Redont deer camp. And this is right after scent inventory. So it's much less likely Loof was tracking something not related to the scent article. Tracks around the scent inventory, and then follows a path off to the southeast that goes away from the Redont deer camp. So it's really so remember the beginning of track 3. I've already talked about it extensively. Here the track ended at the cul-de-sac, but because Loof was stopped. I just want to put everybody back into the mindset of why Loof was stopped. This is the day Loof was stopped. So we have if we start on the left edge of the picture, the cul-de-sac, we see a road coming into the cul-de-sac at the bottom. That's the track that comes from Stephen's trailer on the north side of his trailer and goes west to the cul-de-sac. And then at the bottom of the cul-de-sac, we see this second trail go off. That's going to the deer camp, right by that police cruiser that's parked at the bottom. Mm-hmm. You can see the deer camp in this picture up in the upper right corner. And that's what Loof was sniffing around on that track 5. This area that's in barricade tape is an area that the trees have been cleared.
Yeah.
And there's a suspicious site that's toward the tree line back in that area. They've called for the Wisconsin State Crime Lab mobile laboratory, which I think is what this yellow vehicle is. And it's actually able to do analyses on the road. And they had people called from the DCI and Wisconsin State Crime Lab out here. Numerous police officers just, deciding to eat donuts and stand around. Here's a picture from a helicopter. Mm-hmm. So we can see a lot of attention being focused, a lot of barrier tape. At just before 5 o'clock, I think one of the phone calls telling people to go home was at 4:51 p.m. And George would be an expert on this. He just remembers all this evidence connections greatly. Amazing. So this excavation site, the statement was given that the site was not pertinent to this case. And that was at 4:51, which is right before sundown. and everybody was told to just go home. We don't need you here. It's also believed that the person that did that was Andy Colborn, of all people.
Good old Andy.
Right. So we just went through track 5. This gives a little bit of Officer Fauski's report. She pre-scented the canine Loof and did a perimeter scent inventory. Gave her, put her in her harness and gave her the find command. So she smelled the scent article. She smelled a circle around the area she's in to look for it. She's harnessed, which tells her it's time to work. The find command says, go find this. Canine Loof went toward the southeast, towards the area of the 3 trailers. So this is immediately after a scent inventory. I don't see any evidence or likelihood that Fauski pulled Loof off. And she's following something related to the scent article, which is interesting. Loof goes to a burning barrel in the garage, then worked along the backside of the blue trailer along a quarry pit, and then circled back to the southeast road. So Loof doesn't find that track that leads back to Stephen's house. She's going to find in track 6. I'll get into more depth on this, but Loof is trained to give a negative scent if she doesn't find any scent associated with the scent article. And she proves this on track 2, where she gives a negative scent, and that indication means there's nothing there associated with the scent article. The thing that we're worried about is Loof was never trained to work with contaminated scent articles. We think the scent article was contaminated, and there's some questions what Loof will do. Will Loof give a negative scent if there's absolutely no trace of the main scent, but there's a secondary scent present that's a contaminator scent? We don't know. Will Loof follow very faint scent that might have been transferred to somebody that was Teresa's scent? We don't know. Would Loof switch to another human scent from the scent article? We think Loof would not do that because Loof was trained not to do that. But would Loof switch to one of these new things she was just trained to follow the very month this is going on? We don't know. So the problem is what Jeff was saying is you really have to work these scenarios where you know the situation because you set it up to see if your dog does the right thing so you can correct them. If you've never trained them to do that, their behavior is not determined. But here, Loof is following human scent, most likely, associated with the scent article, but we can't be sure. Any questions?
It's fine with me so far.
Yeah. So last time I thought this contaminated scent article was the only answer, and Jeff's saying there's more things that might be going on. So
Magilla, can I ask when Loof was being led down the road to the deer camp?
Yeah.
Would have she right? Yes, she.
Yes, no.
She. She would have had any sense of detection back towards that mysterious site that was under tape.
Well, Loof is trained to go where the scent's getting stronger. So she's saying Now, the problem is the person, I think in a lot of cases, we suspect people walk somewhere and walk back.
Yeah.
And in that case, the strongest scent is at the point that they might start, or if they start in the middle of the trail, they're going to go back to the end of it because she is trained to follow the track in the direction it's getting stronger. So if we look at this track, it looks to me like circling the deer camp without much else going on looks to me like maybe somebody's trying to spy on Stephen's property from pretty far away.
Yep.
And maybe they came from the cul-de-sac because they tried to see him from there, and then they thought they could get closer. On the rim, she talks that they work on the rim of this island that the deer camp's on, where they have the best view of Stephen's trailer. It might be a good place to keep a long distance, watch point to see if he comes out with a car.
Right.
Okay, the rest of that track is a little bit interesting. I would say I don't have it fully solved. But after she walks down, she actually walks out to this place where there's she walks onto the main conveyor road. We'll talk more about the conveyor road. And she goes down onto the other side of the woods that's part of the Redant quarry. And she goes in this area that's sort of heart-shaped. I think that's a place where somebody who didn't want to be seen on the other side of the woods has parked a car. So what we're seeing is somebody returning to a car that's been parked in a place where it's not easily seen in the Redant quarry, and it's very hard to see from the Avery property because of all the woods that are in here. So from where this says track number 4 on this diagonal, that's all heavy woods. And that's what they're actually deer hunting in. They're supposed to not deer hunt in the open quarry pit fields, but who knows what they really do. And then when you get to this spot, there's another track that leads on the other side of the conveyor road. So the tracks don't actually cross, and Loof actually goes all the way over to where the RAV4 is. So this told me, well, maybe somebody who parked there also took a trip to the RAV4, and maybe it's the same person. It may not be on the same day. Maybe they parked there twice. Okay?
Yep.
Now, there's a problem with the tracks in general that's very frustrating. But when they get back to the RAV4, they tend to, for some reason, they just tend to stop. Loof didn't say where the track went from here. They actually stop her. If you look at the report, they call her to go somewhere else. So it'd be really nice to know what happened next at this end point. The person did not beam up to the Starship Enterprise, which is what this looks like. They actually stopped Fauski and Loof and asked them to go someone else. I think this is when they actually ask them to come. After 4, they go to 5. They get asked to come back to the Cuss Road cul-de-sac where they'd stopped them. So all the police are doing is interrupting all these tracks, and we don't really know where this leads. We know, and I get a lot more into this in the later part of the talk when we're actually going to talk about the vicinity of the RAV4.
So, Magilla, when in terms of the sketching of the track,
yes,
and in a forensic report, the track gets, irrespective of where the dog is, if the dog is not, forget the expression used, but let's just say not on its find mission, but in other words, it's had its harness taken off or whatever it does, only the journey when it's actually on the find mission gets actually noted on the diagram, on these pictures.
Right. This is when the harness is on and the bloodhound is told to be in tracking mode, not air trailing mode.
Yeah. Okay. So if it got its way over to the RAV4 and it was told, okay, we don't want you to do anything more, then there's no recording there because it's being taken off duty, at least for that moment. Would that be right?
But when we go try to figure out what's going, like we think people planted blood in the RAV4. We think Ryan came in here and showed law enforcement where the RAV4 was parked. We think people planted the RAV4 and escaped this way.
Yes.
So where that trail leads from the RAV4, like that trail might go right to Stephen's house, and it would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Or it might go to a location in the woods where it looks like something drove away on Jamba Creek Road.
Yes.
Which another trail does. but for some reason, when they get back to the RAV4, a lot of times they just cut things off.
Mm-hmm.
Magilla, I wonder if, if you're thinking in law enforcement mind, Loof goes back to the RAV and then it confirms what they think, so they just stop at that point. Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, for this track, I think law enforcement wasn't very plugged into what was going on. Fauski, and she's got an officer witnessing for her who's, I think, pretty low on the totem pole. Maybe it's Reamer. I don't really know that he's super low, but he's not asked to be involved in where they think they're burying up the body. And they're sort of off on their own. And then they decide, well, it looks like this hole had nothing in it. Let's get the dog back here and have it check it out. And they just override whatever was going on. I think if you read the reports, that's the most likely description. Okay, so
Can I make just a quick point? Because I see Millbilly tweeting about, commenting about it. There are some missing reports that have been FOIA'd, but not been granted. So we're working on, this is a working theory. We know it's not complete because we have like 30 pages missing of reports, which could lead us, like, to go the other way.
Yeah, it's interesting how
that's the way it goes with with everything in this case.
Yeah, it's like the police say they're sure they have the right person, but they don't want to release any of their reports. That's because they're still working it or something, right?
Yeah. Yes. Working on it, yeah.
Yeah. They're working on fatiguing us until we go away.
Yeah.
which
Ain't gonna happen.
We hope. we got to keep it on them because that's what they're doing. Their long game is to just stall us. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit. So this is just another source, Police One, that provides canine training, and they talk a little bit in here if you want to read up on the key importance of scent article discrimination training. And that's probably so for Loof. Loof was trained a lot, but this was a very complex crime scene because the dogs come in so late. The crime scene is so contaminated. The presence of, I think, human cremains on the crime scene, coupled with a contaminated scent object, make it very complicated. So I think that put it past any of the scenarios Loof was trained on. And then, unfortunately, the type of training that could have made Loof's behavior more understandable wasn't present. So sometimes Fauski will actually write that she's a little confused in what Loof's saying. I think Loof comes back from the suspected burial site, shaking her head, and Fauski says, well, that's the signal she gives when she doesn't like a smell. And it's like, okay, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. And those are some of the things Jeff picked out as signs that there wasn't good partnering and understanding. So Loof was probably trying to tell the handler things, and the handler just didn't understand. And that's because they hadn't worked through puzzles like this. And what happens when they work through the puzzle is the handler knows the right answer, can see Loof get confused, and can help correct Loof. And Loof would learn, oh, this is what I do in a situation like that. But since they hadn't gone through all that training, that's a problem. So I'm going to skip ahead some here. I encourage you all. So some of the analysis I did that's different than last time is for each trail I'm trying to say. So Loof is actually trained on tracking and air trailing. She was told to track all the time, but you'll see times when she's upset by a smell coming from somewhere else, where she'll lift her head and she knows to air trail. And that's something to watch for in her tracks. I didn't know she was trained on air trailing until I looked at her certificates carefully. On each track, it's possible that Loof is following Teresa's scent. In many of these cases, the scenario where Loof would be following Teresa's scent is extremely far-fetched or hard to believe. Like a track that appeared overnight between the 7th and 8th of November that leads back to Stephen's house from the Redont Deer Camp. And we think the cremains being spread are Teresa's. It's very hard for us to believe that Loof is tracking Teresa's scent. It's just too far-fetched. But when we're starting the last location of the RAV4, moving to the van, it's likely Loof started out tracking Teresa's scent.
Mac, no.
Another theory is that the scent is associated with the contaminated scent article. There's another thing with Teresa's scent that I tend to lump in with the contaminated scent article, is there are people who are carrying Teresa's scent because they are living in Teresa's living space, maybe living even in, rubbing their bare feet on Teresa's floors and sleeping in Teresa's bed with Teresa's sheets. If that doesn't nauseate you. And they're also men, so they probably change the sheets about once every 2 months, if that often. So those people may be carrying Teresa's scent, but not be Teresa. And I normally.
Oh yeah. Just one second, but it could also be law enforcement visiting Teresa's apartment, then going to both crime. There was a lot of officers going there, Poggle, whoever it was, or I forget who picked up all the stuff. So that's another possibility.
It is a possibility that the law enforcement, but the law enforcements were not in Teresa's home for very long. And afterward, they went out and hopefully showered and changed clothes every day. The people that can replenish Teresa's scent on them are the people living in her house. Her scent is all over everything in her house. It's all over the floors. If she walked around her house with the floors in bare feet, her foot scent would be all over the floors and would be transferred to other people's feet if they walked around bare feet or socks, or even their shoes, her sheets. And then there's a whole scenario of those people contaminating her shoes with their scent while they're staying there. So their scent can be on the scent article. So while it could be the police have a very superficial and short time experience in this property, where Scott Blodorn, Ryan Hilligus, and Teresa's cat, and maybe some members of Teresa's family, Mike Halbach especially, spent a lot of time there. It's possible Kelly Pitson, but I think it's very far-fetched to think a policeman who visited that place for 10 minutes somehow is leaving tracks that the dog's following all over the property.
Right, and I think, if I'm understanding it correctly, Loof would follow the stronger trail.
Right, the strongest trail associated with the scent. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Strongest, which will be a combination of, who's carrying the most of her scent and who has the freshest trail.
Can I just ask if weather conditions from previous days do anything to a trail like that?
Okay, so there's some interesting things there. There was some rain earlier in the week before the RAV4 is found. Then there's rain late in the day on the 5th.
Yeah.
And then there's heavy rains on the 6th.
On the 6th, yeah.
Yeah, like very heavy rains. And then on the 7th and 8th, there aren't rains. And the wind is listed as 0 to 6 miles an hour, though it does change directions. So there's very little wind and no rain the whole time the scent dogs are here. But there was heavy rain on the 6th. So if you're thinking these trails were laying down let's say on the 3rd or the 4th, by the 7th, it's pretty hard to believe that somebody who only had a minor amount of Teresa scent on them would still be laying any tracks down. The difference about Scott Blodorn, Ryan Hilligus, and Kelly Pitson is they keep going back to her house, so they're going and getting recontaminated with her scent.
Mm-hmm. Listen, Mr. Magilla, it's been great, and I think we've
have enough for one day.
You've been working hard for an hour. I've got a couple of questions, but I'm going to let the other guests go first. If there's any more questions from Mark, I know I need to let you go pretty soon because you've got a flight to catch.
Well, my questions are really based around. I mean, I love this work that Magilla does. It's just fabulous. I'm fascinated by the whole scent articles and I think it's track 6, Magilla, or maybe it's 5. I forget the number, but the one where he's running up and down the burn.
That's 6.
And 6, yeah. Okay, so there's the fact that wasn't there earlier on and was there at a time after all of this is extremely telling, and can only be created by someone who has that connection, that scent connection to Teresa.
No, I don't believe that's true.
No,
because on that track, we think the person was carrying cremains, and I think Loof had just trained on human remains and cremains that month of October, and I think Loof the smell of the cremains I think were so strong that I think Loof actually followed cremains on that track.
So despite being given at the start of that track a direction to follow alternative evidence, that the smell overwhelmed?
Yes, if you actually follow the write-up, and we didn't go into that yet, but she talks about Loof getting very fascinated by what they call a cat litter pail that's in the corner of the yard. There's pictures of that pail, and it looks like it's got wet cat litter on it. I think that wet cat litter was actually crumbled human cremains. There's nothing on the pail marked. I think Jora's actually ran this down pretty good once for us, but there's nothing on the pail that says cat litter. I think there was an angle we could get sort of a brand name or something. It wasn't an evidence.
No, really, no.
Yeah.
No, it's hard to tell. Yeah.
But it wasn't an evidence pail, and it didn't say Tidy Cat on it. But if you looked in it, they take a picture looking at the lip of it, and it looks like wet cat litter crusted around the edge. But the tiniest pieces of the cremains look just like that, which is
okay.
So I think they took that bucket. They went down this trail, waited, carried the bucket to the burn pit, dumped it out, carried the bucket back to the deer camp, and tossed it. And that bucket is the point where I think Loof changes to being interested in the bucket. And Sarah does comment about the bucket quite a bit in the report. I think she misspelled litter pail. I think she's got litter as leader, and I think pail spelled P-A-L-E. Maybe she's thinking of a beer or something. But we worked that theory pretty good. I don't know, a year and a half ago, I think. But I think that trail is actually the cremains. Yeah. We also have the human remains detection dogs going crazy in the same vicinity.
Paul, that's my question in the interest of time.
Yep, no worries. Gentlemen, Denman, Joyce?
Yeah, well, I have a question about these human remains.
About that,
Go
ahead, George.
No, I was about the human remains and the blood scent, where that goes.
Yeah.
I'm basically tunnel visioned on the pile 3, is it what it's called? Yeah. the concrete pile where alert 15 is on. And I just wondered, there was no dogs at the property at all at the 9th, and they come back at the 10th, and I was like, why was that going to be? Like, they sent cadaver dog Brutus, which is another dog, just straight away there, and I was like, why is that? You know?
Well, I think that the CASO officers, some of these locations, I think, had CASO officers that were very honest, and they just found something interesting and asked for support. And some of these events, I think, are them legitimately just trying to figure out what they found. And then some of the situations seem very suspicious, and almost universally you find Colburn and Lank hanging around. So
yeah.
I do think the county quarry and the slabs of concrete, I think the officers involved down there just found something they thought was important. They weren't in the midst of all this cover up or like talking to Kratz and trying to control what evidence was found. And they found some stuff looked like a burn pile, and they wanted the dog to see if it could identify it. I think it's pretty innocent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
It's what everybody should have done.
Yeah,
Right?
I think one of my questions. Yeah, I think that's an important part I've looked at through all the evidence is you have some officers actually doing their job, and then some others that are suspect, and it's hard to just. I wanted to paint everyone all the same; they're all together, but it's not the way. You can hear some officers through recording interviews or whatever. They're honest. You know, they're trying to do they're not in on the game.
Yeah.
But back to I think it was track 6. Is that switchback on the berm? Is there any chance that's a lost track or a lost scent for Loof, and it's trying to search it out again, or do you actually read that as the actual like pacing back and forth as you mentioned?
Well, so she describes it as extremely strong scent. She said in her experience, it was like she was within 25 yards of the target. So like whoever did this should have been within 25 yards of her. The HRD dogs. So they call them cadaver dogs a lot in the reports, but when they were actually in trial, they tried to make a point that they were HRD dogs and had trained on cremains. If you look at Julie Kramer's testimony, they go nuts that day, and they actually talk to one of the more senior trainers, and he says, wait until after sundown, and the scent may calm down, and the dogs may be able to pinpoint something better. So the human remains detection dogs are going nuts on that berm, and they use the word of working in a pool of scent. So the walking back and forth is not recreating the scent trail. That whole area is just filled with the scent, and we don't know what was really going on. And within that scent trail, the dog is trying to find an exit point with a stronger scent from that scent trail to see where it went.
Oh, interesting.
So if somebody on a trail goes and stays somewhere a long time, you end up with what they call a scent pool. And then trying to find the exit from the scent pool, the dog will walk around the scent pool looking for the strongest exit point, that's where Fauski draws that big double arrow pointing at Stephen's property. It's like she was drawing the defense theory. It's like, oh yeah. So from this point, now the other thing, and I have some slides in there, is there's what I think is a good cop from Queso watching the burn barrel that day, and there are photos straight from that burn barrel looking back at the corner of the lot, and he's got an open look at it. There's nothing between that corner of the lot and that officer. So I think the person is waiting for an opportunity for that person to be gone and has to keep coming back there to see if that person is still there. And that's why they're standing there so long. And probably they ran to that burn pit and back as fast as they could to minimize the amount of time they could be seen that they would be in trouble.
Yeah.
And they're policemen, so as soon as they get rid of the bucket. All right. Pleasure talking to you.
And thank you for all this. I find it so fascinating. I'm super grateful that you and Joris and all others, we keep going, and I'll keep listening, but I got to run now. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Paul. See you, Mark. We'll
Have a good day. Have a good day, Dan.
And, right on.
Catch you later, Stacey.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Cheers. Cheers, guys.
Enjoy your fishing.
And then there were 3. No, 4.
3 and a gorilla.
Yeah. I do have one question, kind of relevant, is and I don't want to jump the gun here, so tell me if this is far too soon to be asking this, but the Norm Garn email where he talks about a burial site and the places that he wants to check out, do they kind of match up with the dog sense, or am I being too presumptuous here to sort of jump the gun here?
Well, we were just about to get to Trek 5, which is the one where Loof is actually at the burial site. So we could pick that up on another day.
Well, if you're available same time next week, that would be brilliant. I do have another question. Joris, what are you drinking?
Yes. Sorry?
What are you drinking?
Well, it's called an IPA.
Mm-hmm.
You know IPA, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There it is. Yeah, it's from Grolsch. That's a typical hard Dutch word. Yeah, you can't come here. Grolsch. You know Grolsch, yeah?
No,
Yeah. Best bottle there is.
Yes.
There it is.
I love that. I love that lid.
Model.
Yeah. Grolsch. Yeah. Even Eunice is getting excited.
Oh, yeah.
she's in the laundry room. But,
all right. Time to go then.
Not anymore, she's not. Mark's here, by the way. Yeah, he's here.
Magilla, thank you, and Joris, for all that you're doing. It's fascinating things, as Stacey said, and I look forward to the next broadcast.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure, gentlemen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Hi there, guys.
Hi, Eunice.
Hi. How are you doing?
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks. I've just had to have a COVID test though, but I'm negative, so that's fine.
That's good. Hey, Eunice, I have to fly. I've got to literally have to fly, so I'm saying hi and goodbye.
No bother. Take care.
Okay.
Nice seeing you, Mark.
You too. All the best.
Speak soon.
Bye.
Bye.
See you, Joris.
Bye then. Well, I'm going to go as well then. See you the next time, right?
Yeah, no bother. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. They're off. So I've no switched off because I didn't know how to do it.
Okay, thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll catch you all again soon. The missus caught me out there, so not to worry, not for the first time. As I say, thanks for joining in, and thanks to Joris, Magilla, the Hod, and Stacey, and thanks also to an hour previously to everybody that was there, to Dave and Pete, Millbilly. It's a nice, very nice community that we've got. Anyway, and thank you very much to all you fantastic supporters out there. We'll catch you all again soon. Bye for now.